Okay, I just want a little bit more clarity on is the Messiah going to come in an easier way or a
Oh,
more
thank you,
difficult
thank
way
you,
because
thank you.
Iran is threatening to obliterate the world as well?
Yeah. If the generation turns to the God of Israel, so then it will happen not easy or hard, but then the text is then there'll be more miracles.
Joining us now on the Tamar Yona Show is Rabbi Tovia Singer. Many of you, I'm sure, have already heard about him because he is the internet's hottest rabbi. He takes on some of the toughest questions about Judaism, faith, Christian Jewish relationships. He's the founder of Outreach Judaism and has been teaching and speaking around the world for decades. And his mission is to bring lost Jews to the church back into the fold. And he does some amazing content just trying to debate missionaries on the street corner. And if you're not familiar with him, you need to go to YouTube and look up Rabbi Tovia Singer. He is absolutely amazing. So without further ado, Tamar, please take it away. Tovia, thank you for being here.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt. Tovia, it's been so long. My
Yes.
goodness. Great to have you with me again, or me to be
Yes.
with you, or
It's a
whatever.
it's a big
Okay,
pleasure to have me
TNT,
on. Go
TNT.
ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you the question that I know that everybody's asking, and is this the Messianic age that we're in? With all that's going on, we've got Iran threatening to destroy places all over the world. We have the isolation of Israel, Am Livadad Yishkon, a nation that dwells alone. We have also the government is so weak here today, and we have the stage set basically for the Messiah to come, the Mashiach to come. What do you say?
So imagine for a moment we're at a Passover Seder and we're in Nirtzach. We're at the in the final stage of a 15-part order of our Passover Seder, right? And imagine if you ask the question, are we at a Passover Seder? And the answer is yes. Are we in the Messianic age? The answer is yes. We are part of a Seder. It's a very odd name that marks the meal that's ritually pregnant with more customs than any other meal. And why is it called a Seder? Tamar, if I asked Matt, if we can vote on the best possible name that marks the redemption from Egypt, I don't think any of us would come up with Seder. I don't even think that would be in the top 10. But it's called a Seder because it's an order of events, each one triggering the next. And it's very intriguing that in that end part, you have the Chad Gadya, which means that one attacks the other, attacks the other, attacks the other, and God steps in the final stage. So we are in the Messianic age, meaning we are now in the Seder. It's unstoppable, a series of events that are unfolding now. And one would think, if one, we didn't know better, that books like Ezekiel, a great prophet who lived not 3 years ago, you'd think he wrote it 2 years ago, but wrote it 2,500 years ago, is describing in his 38 and 39 chapter, the war between Israel and Persia, modern day Iran. You'd think he just wrote it a few weeks ago. So we are in the messianic process right now.
Where are we in the Messianic process, though?
Oh, so I really first I want to encourage you, the viewer, to do this. Don't use a commentary. And I say that as a fellow who learned in the mirror, so that may sound to some of the viewers to be arrogant. Rashi, a blessed memory, would have given anything to live in our time, and he couldn't see our time. And Maimonides laments that it'll only be that final generation that will understand. So we are told explicitly, and I plead with you, the viewer, some of you I know are fans, all that stuff. Don't be. Don't like me. I want you to open up Ezekiel 38 and 39. Very easy to read. Not all of Ezekiel's easy. This is very easy. And you will see that Persia, the enemies of Israel, will be drawn into a war against Klal Yisrael. See Ezekiel 38, verse 4 and 5. They logically should never get into a war, but they will be drawn in, the prophet says, like hooks in the mouth of a beast. Now, what's very important for you, the viewer, to understand about this tectonic chapter is that 2,500 years ago, this made no sense. The Jews didn't have a problem with Persia. In fact, the Persian Empire was benevolent to the Jews. Cyrus, the king, tells the Jews, go back and build a temple 50 years after it was destroyed. There's nothing that was going on back then that any prophet of God would have said, your implacable enemy at the end of days will be Persia, a nation that's roughly 1,000 miles east of where we are all right now. But in fact, as it turns out, the very same place that had a empire when the Babylonian Talmud was written in the Sasanian Empire in Iraq, that is now our implacable enemies, and along with its yoyatseim, along with its helpers. The key is that I'm just going to tell you what Ezekiel 38 says, but please read it for yourself. You don't need a commentary because we have more access to it than Chazal did, and they said that. They said Maimonides says in the Law of Kings, chapter 12, read first and second section. It's right there that don't bother trying to understand every detail of these passages. Only that generation will fully understand it. So this is not like I'm making up something or I'm saying something really amazing. This is what Chazal say. It says very simply that there will be a war at the end of days. The Persia will be drawn in along with its other groups. A group will come from the north. And that's what Israel's battling right now, is a nation in the north. Please look it up for yourself. And then the text says they will perceive there's an aperture, an opening in the land of Israel, which doesn't have proper bars and gates, and they'll attack. This will ignite the fury of God. I'm going to skip through 38. I beg you to just look at the last passage of this numinous chapter where it says the reason why there's a war, why the coming of the Messiah is preceded by a war. The end of the chapter says, so the nations will know that I am God. That's why the enemies of Israel will be destroyed. That's why I'm very careful. We're in a Seder, we're in order of events. And again, I'm not rhetorically gifted in any way. I'm rather totally plagiarizing our sacred ancient literature. So, and 39 ends the exact same way. And I want to speak to those people who believe in replacement theology. I want to talk to Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and all those luminaries, those giants, all those great leaders of the free world. I encourage you to read Ezekiel 39. Now, everybody knows, I mean, Christians, many Christians get Ezekiel 38 and 39 is the war of Gog. It's like everybody knows this. So if you look at these chapters are not like a whitewashing of the Jews. Like the Jews are so great that they could just defeat their enemies. Really, quite the contrary. The text enumerates the sins of the Jewish people, why we went to exile. And this has to shut down replacement theology because the text is clearly telling us this is not the church that replaced Israel. No, these are the people that were sent to exile because of their sins. Read it for yourself. Ezekiel 39, verse 24, 25. But these sins will be atoned for, will be forgiven. The nation will be restored back because of the promises that God made to our forefathers, and all the nations will know that I am Lord, and Israel will know that I am Lord when the children of Israel will defeat their implacable enemies. Again, read it for yourself.
Okay, so there's a discrepancy on what some people believe is the kingdom of the North. Some say it's the United States under Trump. Some say it's Turkey. Some say it's Russia. You have Meshech and Tuval. Meshech is like Moscow. Tuval is like the Tuval River up north, area, etc. What do you believe the kingdom of the North is?
I mean, right now, like all you have to do, like I imagine our ancestors did, were puzzled by this. I promise you that live for a moment, imagine that we can go into a time machine 2,500 years ago to Yechezkel, to Ezekiel, and ask him, Rebbe, right, just so you know, in 2,500 years from now, there's going to be a nation north on October 8th attack us. He says, what's October 8th? So we say, okay, well, the day after Shmini Atzeres, they're attacking us from Lebanon, and they are assisted by other yoyatseim, by other collaborators. It's true, Russia is providing intelligence. I'm not going to make believe that I know that. Right now, in fact, the hottest spot between all the wars that we have engaged in, meaning Hamas in Gaza, 62 miles southwest of where we are right now, the Houthis over 1,000 kilometers, Iran 1,000 miles east of us. Right now, the battle where the shooting is going on right now is directly to the north. So if it's staring you in the face that Lebanon, which is directly north of us, is shooting at us right now, and Lebanon, which was created by the French as a Christian country, that's where its boundaries were created originally as a Christian country, but was usurped by Shia Muslims, and the proxy of Iran is in Lebanon, shooting at us now. We're talking about Hezbollah, and they're calling themselves the party of God. And they're saying, why are we talking about Turkey? I mean, like, and
I'll
two
tell
is
you
like,
why. I'll tell you why.
tell me why.
Because you're talking about right now.
Yes,
A year ago, it was mostly Hamas that was attacking us, though we did have the Hezbollah did come in and was shooting at us
the
also. But
next
maybe in
day.
another, God forbid,
I'm
a
not
few
going to
months,
pretend, Tamar.
Turkey's already
I,
threatened to
I'm.
invade Israel. So,
I will change my position. Then I
okay.
just know this. Look, Tanakh is my guide. Cheskel is my Rebbe. Now, it is true that I'm looking at what's happening. I'm looking at Tanakh, and we have perfectly. It doesn't describe Asia Minor there. People want to say these places. These places are not rock solid. Just like countries like Ethiopia and so on, were really the modern Ethiopia is not the ancient Ethiopia times. I don't think what Yechezkel wants us to know is the Jews will return back to the land. Jerusalem would be liberated 2,300 years after Alexander the Great would defeat the Persians. So that's exactly 1967. The Hezbollah, a day after Hamas murdered 1,200 Jews and took 251 hostage, murdered 364 kids dancing at the Nova Festival. The next day, Hezbollah was shooting at us, and we had to go in, and many soldiers paid with their lives, and even in the last 48 hours. So I therefore would say this to you. I don't have a secret verse anywhere, or I don't have access to fragments other people don't have. The only difference, I think, is that I'm reading the text. I encourage you, my dear brothers and sisters, to do the same. The text says the north. It's going out of its way to say the north. That's all it says. So if in the north, I mean, you can just go take a compass and that north, you go up there, and that's where they're shooting. And they happen to not be shooting from Yemen now. They happen to not be shooting from Iran right now because there's a reload period that we have now with Iran. So why should I pretend to have access to information which I don't have? I'm
Mhm.
simply telling you what the text says. If it turns out new information comes in, I believe we're very close. Everyone believes that. Are we? Is it this week? Is it? I'm not going to pretend to know what I don't know. But if it's so transparent that in the most direct north, I mean, you go straight due north of Israel, you're in Lebanon, and it's Shia Islam that's there. That's another thing. Iran's Islamic population is dominated by Shia.
Hmm.
Intriguingly, it's the Shia ideology that would be most incentivized to bring on this final war. Why don't you like shut up and go away and leave it and drop it like the Sunnis have? No, because the Shia believe in this a 12th imam that's inoculation that can only be brought out with a final end time war. It happens to be, Tamar, there are no Shia Muslims in the entire land of Israel. There's none. It's all Sunni. There's no Shia here. So the Shia are in Lebanon. It's one of the major hub of Shia Islam, of course, is Iran since the early 16th century. But there's a very considerable Shia population in Lebanon, and Hezbollah is a Shia um, uh, is a Shia terror organization. So, like, why, like it's Occam's razor? Why not take the simplest answer? We're here, we're watching this, and rather engage in some entomological tzad hashava to some other passage tells another. I'm a person that's an imperialist. I look at the data in front of me. I look at Tanakh and I say, does it match? And I follow it. That's all.
Okay. So I just want to make clear here that I'm not saying it's Moscow, Russia, or Turkey, or Lebanon, or America. I, after all these years of listening to different views and viewpoints, I'm just taking the let's wait and see aspect.
Yeah.
That's where I
People
am.
people should not say America. I mean, really, that would be a very, very grave mistake.
Okay.
America, I won't talk about it if you want to talk.
No, go
America
ahead.
has so
Floor is
there's
yours.
all right. I want to just make one point because it's largely misunderstood. There are in Tanakh massive chapters about an ancient civilization called Sur or Tyre. Okay, we have whole chapters. You have in Ezekiel chapter 26, 27, 28. You have Isaiah 23. It's all over the place. What what is this Tyre? What is it? It was Israel's best friend during the first temple period. They helped build the first state of Israel, meaning
Iran, right,
yeah, Hiram, very good. This you got to know. Now you got to now. What happens is they were fantastically wealthy, a mercantile superpower in the ancient world, and provided all kinds of materials to build the Beis Hamikdash. They provided, in fact, artisans to help carve the Beis Hamikdash.
right,
One of them was a Jewish kid whose mother was Jewish and father was not. She
right.
was from the tribe of Dan. Whatever. So the question I just want for you, the viewer, to understand how to learn Navi. Navi is not Barbara Tuchman. It's not a history book. And everything in the Navi that's there, you have to ask the question, how is this Nagea? How is this relevant to me? So now what happens is they fail at the end, see Ezekiel 28, meaning they ask for land, that Israel should make land concessions. And ultimately, it's a buildup, but ultimately God says you're going to be destroyed because of this. So Tyre failed, and in fact, historically, they're gone. They don't exist any longer. The key point is America. I love America. Why do so many of our viewers, if I would ask the people who are watching us now, why do you love America? So the answer would not be because America is a beautiful country. It is because of the Smoky Mountains, which
Mm.
took my breath away when I visited, not because of all the Great Lakes and the upstate New York. No, they would say because of principles and ideals of democracy and liberty. These are the things that we love about America. That's what I love about America. It's where I and my parents were born. So if America were ever to abandon its principles and become another nation, of course America would be putting itself in danger. But I have every reason to hope, to believe. Of course, this wishful thing, because I love America so much that I want her to be successful. But she's now standing by Israel in a way that no other president has, and therefore we should only be supportive that America should be strong. But when we say God bless America, we're not saying God bless the Rocky Mountains, which are beautiful. I've seen them, they're fantastic. We're saying God bless a nation that recognized Israel very early on and did it not like the Soviets did it for pragmatic reasons, because Soviet Stalin thought that Israel would become one of its satellite things. No, Truman did that, and we have a Karas Hatov to be grateful for this. And that means God bless the morality or the moral principles of America. I envy America's system of choosing Supreme Court justices. I wish Israel had a system like that. I envy that.
Agreed on
But
that point,
okay,
yes.
so I'm just going to say that out there. So no one should say at a time when we have a president with Donald Trump, Hashem should watch over him, did what he did with Fordo and so on. People should be careful what they say, not because of offending people. Just be careful what you say. Don't say that. We're not.
Well, I'm just
And that's it.
bringing you the different theories
Yeah,
that
yeah.
different
Oh, yeah.
rabbis have.
I got it. I got it.
Okay. So, with all that's happening, you have Iran. They said they're locked and loaded. If they get attacked, they are going to be sending thousands of missiles on American bases, on Europe, possibly Europe as well, and of course Israel and the Arab Gulf countries there is also. And America is saying we're going to, what was the word he used? Like disintegrate or
Obliterate.
obliterate Iran, taking out like this is like possibly World War III. I don't know. How do you see things developing? What do you see coming out of all of this?
What I see is it's not important. I beg you, the viewer. It's easy. And some of Ezekiel is not easy. Ezekiel is divided into three sections, just so everybody knows, has three sections. Section one is why the first temple was destroyed. Section two is what God's going to do to the enemy nations of Israel. Section three, which begins at Ezekiel 34 to 48, is about Mashiach, and there's no parallel to it, okay? Guys, get that into your mind. So you could do this tonight. Read from Ezekiel 34 to Ezekiel 48. That's Mashiach, and there's no parallel to the details. Now, we are told what happens. That is, it's like Pharaoh, meaning that God is hardening the heart of the enemies. Logically, Iran should go on tilt. The term on tilt is a term used in sports. It's used in playing against a computer. One of the reasons why it's hard for the greatest chess players to play against a computer, because even if you can beat the computer in a next game, when you reboot, doesn't go on tilt. Whereas human opponent goes on tilt and gets weaker, and the second game is not as good. The key point is the following: that God is hardening the heart of the enemies of Israel. We're just going to call Persia, and therefore it's just going to keep going in. And the reason for that is that Hashem is going to destroy them completely. Because logically, if you were the head of Iran, like if you could whisper in their ear, you'd say, "Hey guys, just give up the enriched uranium." Okay, just give it up. You don't need it for energy. Just open up the Straits of Hormuz. After all, those are international waters. And like go home and rebuild your country and stop sending money to terrorist
Or
groups. Like stop. Like just stop.
or
And
get
everyone
this, just wait 2 years until Trump is out of office. Or buy
well,
yourself
that's
a
probably
nuclear
playing
weapon
into it.
instead of trying to develop it yourself. So there's
Yeah,
many things,
that's
and God is hardening
yes,
their
yes,
hearts.
yes, yes. That's correct. You are. This is a very. I hope you, the viewer, understood what Tamar just said, and that is part of their strategy. That to wait until Trump is out, and they're waiting for November 28th. Absolutely, and it's very important that that does not slip out of this interview. That's correct. What is happening, however, Iran is locked and loaded, and they're prepared for another moment. And it is intuitive that Iran is saying, "Can we make it?" The problem is Iran is not thinking now with a single mind or voice, because there are many. The leadership of Iran have all been obliterated. So what you have is different people in their military leadership who are thinking differently. That's how we see an incoherent message coming from them. And according to Tanakh, not according to Tovia, doesn't matter what Tovia thinks, but if you read Ezekiel 39, they're just going to keep coming back, and God's going to push them to come back because they are wicked. And then what happens is the Navi says, there'll be such a body count of the enemies of Israel that for 7 years, all the scavengers of the air and the land will be eating the dead bodies of the enemies of those who came. It says that openly. So they who are the persist in being the enemies of Israel will be destroyed. One other thing, if I may, Persia, Iran is a very intriguing place, a country of nearly 100 million people. But what's very striking is it's estimated, I'm not an expert on this, but it's estimated only 10% of the country backs this regime. But it's clear that I get a lot of, until the war, I got a lot of emails from Iran more than any other Muslim country just saying thank you, whatever it is. It's an intriguing place because whereas other countries, they really don't like Jews. That means the mainstream people really can't stand us in many areas of the Middle East. Persia is intriguing in that it is so obvious to me that the vast majority of the population really want to worship the God of Israel and cling to the children of Israel and bless Israel, and it's a regime that's keeping them down, unlike other places where that is not the case. So it's therefore Persia is an ideal place where you can have the enemies destroyed, but the country then rise up and choose the God of Israel. So very interesting, an ideal place where that can happen.
So, how do you see this playing out?
Just what I said. Everything I told you, I know. I know people want like me to predict. It's there. The enemy, Persia is coming back for more, and they will be utterly
So
destroyed.
there won't
And
be an
that's what the
agreement
text
with
says.
Trump.
Oh no. No, no,
Okay.
there could be temporary agreements. Look, we've had agreements with Hamas. You know, you and I were both in Gaza, right? We were there.
Mm.
We saw it, and we know what. You know, you used to say this. You know that ceasefire in the Middle East means what?
We
Reload.
cease and they fire.
They cease and they fire, right? So well, I'm not going to pretend to be some genius like I. It is so transparent what's going to happen, but I'm here to just tell you what's in Tanakh. I'm not going to pretend that I have access to some secret esoteric knowledge that no one else does. It's the only thing is that people are not reading Tanakh and mistakenly think that I'm a smart guy. I'm not. I've just read the text.
Okay. So if Iran stays intransigent and Trump goes in and obliterates them, then what? Where's Israel in this?
Oh, that's very, very clear. I look at Ezekiel 38, just like the last verse. It's all you need. It's there. I mean, it doesn't require any commentary. The commentaries would have given anything to live in our generation, observe this. Oh, they're utterly destroyed, and this brings the world to a recognition that the God of Israel is the only true God. This is the whole thing. The essence of Mashiach, my brothers and sisters, is that the world knows and recognizes the God of Israel. He is God, and there'll be only one faith in the world. Everyone will worship the God of Israel. Arise and shine, for your light is come. Kings will go by your light. Isaiah chapter 60, verse 1, 2, 3. It's just plainly there. The sons of them that afflicted you will come bowing to you. That does not mean, like the anti-Semites say, that we're going to enslave the nations. By the way, it's in Isaiah, so you Christians should know. But rather, all the nations will want to cleave to us. So what's very important is that when this is the Navi is saying this repeatedly and everywhere. And that is that when the enemies of Israel are completely destroyed, so what will happen? It will bring a realization to the world that Hashem is true, and all the world will turn to the children of Israel, and they'll say, Nelchu imochem, ki shamanu Elohim imochem. Let us go with you, because you heard that God is with you. Want to say this too, tomorrow. You know, imagine if we can go back in time and speak to your great great grandfather of blessed memory, and inform him about what's happening now. He would go, I can't believe it. Now, he was a religious man, so of course he was a believer, but he could have never imagined this. No one could. This doesn't make any sense.
Even
Israel,
70 years ago. You don't have to go to great great
I'm
grandfather.
just saying, so therefore, now I wanted to suggest something that's counterintuitive. There's a little problem for us. So I just started saying that we're fortunate. We're living in the Messianic period, right? But I want to say something that's going to be a little counterintuitive in that. And this is a little deep, so pay very careful attention. There's a disadvantage to living in this time. What's the disadvantage? Because I meant something deep when I talked about your great-great-grandfather. Because you and I were born when there was a state of Israel, right? Because you and I grew up and Jerusalem was in our hands, because this was around us, we grew up, we didn't see the Holocaust, we saw the aftermath of that. So because of that, it is a problem for us in that we're so acclimated to it, just as every day we are attacked by infections right now. Infections are trying to kill us, and our white blood cells are fighting them. We have no clue what's going on. We're getting cancer every day, and our body is fighting it off. So, I want to just say this to my dear brothers and sisters: be very careful. There's a downside to living in such a Zman Gula, in that if we would have repeated this over to Jews of the 18th century, our great grandparents, and said to them, "This is what's going on," they'll go, "Of course, Mashiach is here." The reason why there's any sardonic um, odor in the air, the reason why people are sort of going, "What are you talking about? Are you going overboard?" is because we're acclimated to what's really there. And that's what happens when you don't have something, you appreciate it. Something chas v'chalila goes wrong. I can't use my thumb. Oh my God, I didn't know my thumb was so important. So realize that any of the questioning, self-questioning that goes on is because there is a downside to living in this time. The downside is that we take it all for granted. Of course, the IDF is going to, of course, of course, of course. This is a problem of living in our times. So we are living in Shas Gula. It all ends. It's very clear in the text. It's all I'm going to pretend to know what's in the text, that the enemies of Israel will be defeated. And because of that, the nations of the world will know that I am God, and Israel will know that I am God. And one other point, people ask about the building of the Beis HaMikdash, which is also in these passages. The building of the final temple is not only in Ezekiel, but we have the copious unused blueprints there. Like there's no parallel to it all, but we're told the last passages of Ezekiel chapter 37, famous Valley of Dry Bones, verse 28, tells us that when your sanctuary be in your midst, the nation will know that I am God. So there's no like going to Temple Mount and start building something when we have not come to that point. All the nations will want a holy temple that will be on Mount Moriah, very close to where I am right now.
Okay, what about now Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David?
Although these two terms sound similar, they have almost nothing to do with each other. Almost nothing. And this is very tricky to be very careful. So I just need to say this. I need you, the viewer, to listen carefully. The word Mashiach appears in Tanakh. It does. It appears 39 times in Hebrew. It never is referring to the Mashiach. I know that sounds crazy. Mashiach is called many things in Tanakh. He is called things. He's called a Nasi, meaning a prince. He's called David. He's called a lot of things. He's never called Mashiach. Kohanim are called Mashiach. And it just means anointed.
Right.
Moshiach is a verb, it just means to anoint. Cyrus, not a Jew, called the Mashiach. Doesn't mean the oil actually was put on his head. Isaiah 45, verse 1. Be very careful. So listen very carefully. First of all, Mashiach ben Yosef, that phrase does not appear anywhere in Tanakh. And people speak about this, and unfortunately, most of the people I hear out there in the open ether, they don't really know what they're talking about. I'm sorry to say it, but just the way it is. Be very careful. We have Zechariah 12, where it's not mentioned, but what happens is mentioned, and this is a tractate, the Talmud tractate, Sukkah 52, page 52. This is an event in the end of days, and listen carefully. The book of Zechariah is not an easy book to understand. In fact, Rashi, his only introduction, writes that's how he starts. He doesn't give an introduction to any other book in Tanakh except for Zechariah. He says a hard book, and it is a very hard book. However, chapter 12 is not a hard chapter. Any 5-year-old could read it. It's very easy. So listen very, very carefully, okay? The nation of Israel is brought back from a great trauma, brought back to the land of Israel, and Jerusalem is in the hands of the Jews. God takes the people who have been shattered. They're called chaloshim. even the weakest of them will be like David, even like the angel of the Lord of hosts. Jerusalem will be a heavy, burdensome stone to all nations that come against it. You've all heard these words. Well, they come from Zechariah chapter 12. So Zechariah 12 is clearly the Jews returning to the land of Israel and having liberating Jerusalem before the Messiah comes, because war is continuing. When Messiah comes, there'll be peace. Listen carefully. So that's what we're leading up. Verse 9, translate, it'll be in that day that I will destroy all those who rise up against Jerusalem. That's verse 9. Then it tells us that there will be an outpouring of God's Spirit. However, there'll be an attack, a horrible attack against the Jewish people. And vehebitu elai et asher dokaru, they look to me because of, now there's a disagreement of opinion in the past, whether this is referring to many people getting killed in a massive terror attack or a single military person getting killed. I, as a youngster growing up studying this Talmud, just couldn't imagine how we wondered, like, what military figure could cause an entire nation to go into a complete state of mourning and to unify. But that's what Mashiach ben Yosef is. So the only thing, even though they say Mashiach Yosef, blah, 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 when people like conflate those, stop. I don't mean to offend people. The only thing they have in common is they're both end times. That's it. They're not the same. It's not like we have, like, Lahavdil, God forbid, like Batman and Robin. They're not connected, except you have a precursor event to the coming of the Messiah, the son of David, which is a relatively minor figure in Tanakh. Just remember this. You grew up in a Christian country. Probably this has affected you. The Mashiach ben Yosef is an event. The Gemara in Megillah, Talmud, in Tractate Megillah 30, says openly that this event will happen on Sukkot. Biglal zeh, because of this, guess what the Haftorah is on the Sabbath of the Festival of Tabernacles for the Haftarah? What do we read? Ezekiel 38 and 39. So the Talmud says that this trauma that will hit the children of Israel, which will cause us to go into a complete state of mourning and a unification, and then trigger Milchemes Gog uMagog. Like, what I'm saying, please, you don't even need a shas. You can just go on. It's online. The whole Talmud is online. So the Gemara says that's when it's going to happen. So it's an event of trauma, but it occurs. This is a little tricky. I'll give you an example, if I may, because it'll make it easy to understand. On July 4th, 1976, what were the headlines of newspapers around the world? Well, logically, July 4th, 1976, that would be America celebrating its bicentennial, right? That's what makes sense. But that wasn't the headlines around the world.
No, it wasn't.
Rather, what's that?
It was Israel frees hostages. I remember.
Yeah, it was
I
Entebbe.
remember that.
Okay, so this is an unbelievable thing that happened. So Israel then did not negotiate with terrorists at the time. And what happened was Israel sent in commandos into Entebbe and rescued hostages that were, and it was, now, in the midst of this marvelous event, which I remember as a child. So you were already much older. I'm kidding. So
we're the same age, everyone.
Just stop. I'm kidding out there. So
he's just prettier than me. That's all.
This is all right. So, but in the midst of this just unbelievable thing, I mean, really, that's headlines. That was around the world. The world was shocked. The key is that there was, in the midst of this great victory, there was a tragedy, and tragically, Bibi's brother was killed in battle. He was a hero, and he never died, and they flying his body back on the plane, and it's portrayed in some movies, but it's the dampening of a moment. The people understand the seriousness of this. And there were a couple of hostages that were tragically left behind. A woman was in the hospital. They weren't able to get her.
So are you saying that Yoni Netanyahu was Mashiach ben Yosef?
No, I'm using this as a metaphor. Okay. So in the midst, I'm using just in the midst of this great success in Tanakh. I mean, Jerusalem is liberated, Israel is, the Jews have returned. Not all the Jews, but it's the midst of there is a great trauma. They will look to me because of the ones that will will kill, stab through. So therefore, it's clear that was what occurred on October 7th. It's interesting. I'll tell you something that'll flip you out. So it's interesting. It says that the nation will go into a deep mourning. It reminds us of what happened to Josiah, who was killed in battle, which caused the nation to mourn over him. He was the last of the great Davidic kings. And it's interesting. The only source in all of Tanakh for a partition between men and women called the Mechitza in prayer, there's only one reference that men and women engage in prayer separately. And that's here. Believe it or not, it says, and the men and women will mourn separately. It's the only place in Tanakh. Chazal tell us if during a time of mourning, Shas Avelus, men and women are separated, and in a time of mourning, it is a least likely time when men and women who have been inappropriate with each other. Al achas kam v'kama, how much more so during a time of regular prayer that men and women set apart. So therefore, it's interesting that the Navi tells us that there's some mechitza issue that was going on in Israel at the time. This is the only place that you'll find it. Now, you'll find the source for men and women praying separately in other places, but in Tanakh, and as it turns out, leading up to October 7th, this is just a little point besides is what was happening in this country. This country was so divided over the high holidays. Remember, the high holidays prior to the Festival of Tabernacles, where at the very end of it, which was was Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah, that we were going to the Supreme Court, always the Supreme Court, over whether in Tel Aviv would they have a massive prayer on the high holidays, whether they can have a mechitza between men and women. And it was horrible what was going on. And there were religious Jews, one man whose wife was murdered by terrorists. The guy went and started to beat him up when he got filmed in the streets of Tel Aviv. And we went all the Supreme Court over a mechitza. So it's interesting that the Navi even puts that in. October 7th was the Mashiach Ben Yosef. So what it is, it's a moment to get the Jewish people to unite over a tragedy, which does unite us more than anything. I want to tell you this, Tamar. We're not the only people that suffer, and we're not the only people that are hated. We don't have a monopoly on bigotry. However, there are many striking things, unique things about Jew hatred. And one of them, not only is it a nihilistic, that means people who hate other people, they don't want them to all die. They just want to go somewhere else. There is a really lechaloisenu. They want to utterly annihilate us. But one of the things that's very important when you study racism and bigotry is that it weakens the victim. It weakens the victims on so many levels. But the Jew is different. That is that anti-Semitism strengthens us. And I've never asked you this. I've never asked Matt this question. And I've never asked you, the viewer, this question. But I'm going to presume that if I asked you what are some of the underpinnings of your inner strength as a Jew, one of the things that give you strength to move ahead, part of it is you're observing a spectacle of anti-Semitism, not just now, but throughout your life, and that has strengthened you. You used to talk about this frequently when we did a show together. So I just want to convey that we are unique in that bigotry against us causes us to become stronger and to unite. And therefore, this is an event that occurs prior to the coming to the Mashiach ben David. But even though they sound the same, be very careful, because Tanakh is not using the word Mashiach about the Mashiach. Be very careful of all these terms. You have to really look at primary sources to know what they mean.
Okay, very brief answer, even just a yes or a no. So I understand and I don't make a mistake. So are you saying that you believe that the Mashiach ben Yosef was basically the attack on October 7th? Is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yes.
Interesting. So it's not a human being, it's an
No.
event.
No, it is.
Okay.
There's 1,200 human beings. It's 1,200 human beings.
Okay, all right.
I mean,
Okay.
if I may,
Yes.
the Kishinev pogroms that famously occurred in 1903, on Passover 1903, where Christians went around and killing Jews for 2 days, I think about 50 Jews were murdered. And Jabotinsky, who lived a few towns over, that's what launched him. That's what triggered him. That was 50 Jews. I'm not sure the exact numbers, 49 or 50. Kristallnacht was 92 Jews on November 10th, 1938. 92 Jews. There's no parallel to this. That means within hours, 1,200 Jews killed, 251 taken out. There's just, if those of you who are students of history, there's just no parallel. Yes, so Mashiach ben Yosef is October 7th. There's so many, this is not speculation. The sources we have of this are so crystal clear. Continue.
Some say that when the Mashiach or the Messiah comes, that there are going to be arguments. Some people are not going to accept him, and they're going to say, Mapi Tomi doesn't wear a black hat, or he doesn't wear this type of, or he's just not who we thought he was going to be. What do you have to say about all of that?
It's not true at all. In fact, everyone will know, and all the nations will know, and all the nations will serve him. See Daniel chapter 7, verse 13 and 14, which is about the Mashiach who comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him glory and honor, and all the nations will serve him. There will be, if there's a person who comes and someone says he's Mashiach and people don't agree, then he's not Mashiach or not Mashiach yet. Now, it could be there's somebody that we could see, say, you know what? He looks like he has the character to be Mashiach. I mean, you could say that, and people may say, agree, disagree. Most Jews would be allergic to that kind of talk because of problems in the past. But when the Mashiach comes, and in Tanakh, just everyone knows, less than 5% of Messianic passages are about Mashiach. We have overspun that. That means in Tanakh, it's the world. There is a Mashiach, and he is the son of David, but he's a teacher of the world. He gives rebuke to the nations. So it's overdone. He is a fulfillment, the heir of the Davidic covenant, 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 12 through 16. But there will be no dissension about who he is. Everyone will recognize it.
Okay. Briefly, when do you think he's going to come on the scene?
I don't know. I mean, I do know the source for when it'll happen. So you say briefly, I can't tell you, but I could tell you what will trigger it. And that's Isaiah 59, verse 20. If 10 seconds. The Redeemer will come to Goel, to Zion will come forth the Redeemer, that's Mashiach. We say it in davening every day. When Jacob does tshuva, means Israel does tshuva, and you see the same thing in Isaiah 127. This is very important. The when thing is you're not thinking through the filter of Tanakh. This is not the way a child of a Torah person thinks. Tanakh does not use this language of when. It doesn't like when. And it curses people who make calculations. It's what affects. You cannot go to Magid before you did Kadesh. So the order is very clear. You could take a whole long time for Magid. And in fact, that's why the story that happened in Bnei Barak, they were talking about these hits the whole night. Why is that pericope in there, in the Haggadah? It's that we don't know the length of these times, so use the language of the Navi. Each part of the order has to be fulfilled. Look, I am not God's manager. I'm a salesman. That's it. I'm not going to pretend to know that's in God's hands, but we know what the conditions are. The Jews must do tshuva, period.
Do you think that the Mashiach is alive right now?
Yes. He's always alive. By the way, 300 years ago, he's alive too. There's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. In every generation, there's someone who is ready and prepared to bring forth the redemption. And if it doesn't happen in any generation, as though the temple was destroyed in that generation. So that's why he's called a branch in Tanakh. A tree, I don't know, a botanist would know it, and a tree could have 1,000 branches. In every generation, there was an adult male person who was the descendant of David and Solomon, who was ready to be the Mashiach if the generation would have triggered it. There's one now, but he is now already changed. He's already ready to go. It means we're now at the precipice. Don't ask when, but these are the events that are happening according to Tanakh. But he is here, but he was here 500 years ago too. Every generation could have brought it.
Does he know he's the Mashiach?
I can't answer that question. According to the Gemara in Sanhedrin, it appears that he does, because the Talmud, I don't want to go into the whole story, but he is at the gates of Rome and he changes his bandages differently. meaning he's like other sufferers of Klal Yisrael. During the exile, he's by Rome because Rome is the source of our misery, but he does behave differently in that at any moment he is set to be called forward. So that's what we know. So he does behave in a way that he knows that he can be called forward. I will not say more because I don't know more. And I'm not going to pretend to have knowledge that is not in sacred literature.
The Jews that are still living in the exile, what about them?
They'll be brought back, but the glory will not be the same. We have ancient literature that tells us, and I don't understand, I'm not going to pretend, the Jew, quick answer. There's quick. The Jews who return before the final step, when Mashiach comes, they will have wings. It's based on the passage in Isaiah chapter 60. We have this in our literature, and I don't know what that means. And the Jews who come after Mashiach, and they have to, Isaiah 43, verse 5 and 6, 4, 5, 6, Ezekiel 37, Isaiah 56, 6, 7, 8. It's all over the place. The Jews return back to Israel. However, there is a difference between those Jews who came before Mashiach and those who come after Mashiach, and Jews in Chutz La'aretz who are not in the land of Israel. There's so many mitzvos that you cannot fulfill outside the land of Israel. Moshe Rabbeinu wept to God, please bring me, I want to go to Israel. I don't need to lead. He was happy not to lead. And the Gemara asked the question, why did Moshe Rabbeinu entreat God to go to Eretz Yisrael? Did he want to go to Kinneret, put his feet in the water? Well, says, no, there's just mitzvahs in the Torah to live in Eretz Yisrael. And I don't understand. The people are worried about kitnios and all these other things that maybe they'll be able. Living there, Charles, is look at Numbers chapter 33, verse 53. Please read the Ramban. Look, it's available. Those who don't read Hebrew, first of all, read the text itself. It's translated. It's online. It's no secret. Read what Nachmanides of blessed memory says about the mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael, the mitzvah of kibush Eretz Yisrael at all times, of settling the land of it. It's not enough that you say, I bought this land, I'm going to let it. No, you have to settle and work the land. Listen, this is very, very clear in the text. To live in Eretz Yisrael, Jews who are in America, who are building castles and even though your rabbis are saying that we're living right now, I mean, everybody's saying it's not like Tovia is some genius. No, everybody knows what's happening now. So what are you doing? Come to Eretz Yisrael now. There's a lot that can be said. I'll only say one thing with your permission. It will only take 20
Please.
seconds, but it really is tectonic. It's very interesting that when 50 years after the temple was destroyed, the first temple, so Cyrus gives the call for Jews in Babylon to return, which is modern day Iraq, to return to Israel. As it turns out, we know exactly who they were. Why? We have a chapter in Tanakh that names all their family. We know everybody. It's Ezra chapter 2. It's a very long chapter, and it enumerates every family that made Aliyah. 42,360 Jews left Bavel and came to Israel. And by the way, the vast majority of them were not religious. Read Ezra and Nehemiah. The problem is the yeshiva world is not reading Ezra and Nehemiah. And I hope you, the Rosh Yeshiva who are watching this, will say, this has to change. So it's interesting that there's a first burst of an Aliyah to the land of Israel to build a second commonwealth, to build a second temple, but a very small number, and this is criticized in our literature, that such a tiny number, we don't know the exact number, but it was a tiny number. But their names are inscribed in Tanakh forever and ever, Ezra chapter 2. Subsequently, there were other waves of Jews who came to the land of Israel after the second temple was built. You want to know what their names are? We don't know. Why? They're not inscribed. So you have to know that if you come before Mashiach comes, your name will be inscribed in our sacred oracles. Beyond that, I won't say. It's a mitzvah. It's in Tanakh. Come.
Some people say that it's so dangerous in Israel, they don't want to come. And other people say Israel's going to be the safest place for Jews. And with that question, what do you think about that? I want to add, they say also that the Mashiach can come in an easy way or in a hard way. So
That's true.
what do you
That's
think?
the second part is true. So this is like exactly what Jewry was thinking when Hitler rose to power. and that is don't go to Palestine. Palestine's going up in flames. Don't go to America. Like, don't go to Israel. Palestine's going up in flames. Okay. Well, what exactly happened? The Jews came. Those Jews who came to the land of Israel, came to the Holy Land. They were safe here. Now, it's true that in the German colony, swastikas were flying. The Templar had swastika. Jews weren't killed. Jews were safe in Israel, and Hungary, 500,000 Jews were murdered in the course of 3 months. That's an example. And you could see the literature that people, I'm not going to judge, that people then in the stage said, don't go to Palestine. Palestine's going to go in flames. This is the record of this thing. So people who are talking this way obviously are not a student of history. There's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to live in the land of Israel. Even if someone says, I don't hold like Nachmanides, which is mind-blowing, even if you say that, but no one would disagree that there are mitzvot, not two, not three. There's so many commandments that can only be fulfilled in the land of Israel. I don't even know what people are thinking about. I mean, I want to say this. I want to say this. We are living in the most literate generation since the days of Hezekiah, who lived during the Assyrian Empire 2,700 years ago. It is mind-blowing. It's an act of Satan that this generation, where there's so much literacy and so much literature, everything's accessible in 1 second. And we're not learning Navi. And if people were learning Navi properly, no one would be interviewing me. There are other people much smarter than me.
Navi, by
People,
the way, for those who don't know, Hebrew is the prophets
right?
in the
You
Bible.
have to learn the prophets and the historical ketuvim. Now you have to learn all of it. So the wisdom literature in the writings, meaning that's the third part of the Hebrew scriptures, like Psalms. People do read Psalms and pray with Psalms and study Proverbs for sure, for sure, for sure. But the historical segments of it, like Daniel. You're not reading Daniel, you don't know what's flying. If you're not reading Ezra and Nehemiah, which is Ezra and Nehemiah, which is really one book, it was later divided into, then you have no clue what's going on. And I will get a lot of interviews, and people are going to say, oh, wonderful things about me. The reason is that people are not reading these sacred oracles that are messianic. And those who know the tractate and Megillah knows that the Talmud says openly that it's these books that contain the exact timing or the exact order of events that will happen before the Messiah comes. Literally, that's where the end times is. So I just say to all, it's time to dive into these the sacred literature, because that's what I'm appealing to.
Okay, I just want a little bit more clarity on, is the Messiah going to come in an easier way or a
Oh,
more
thank you,
difficult
thank
way,
you,
because
thank you.
Iran is threatening to obliterate the world as well?
Yeah, so this is based on a passage the in the Be'itay Achishana, which means so it so what the text is, Isaiah chapter 60 verse 22. It's 60 is a messianic chapter. In fact, we read from it a little earlier during this interview. So the text says, in its time, it ends, in its time I'll hasten it. I'm going to make this easy answer. If the generation turns to the God of Israel, because they're a Dor Zakai, which means they're a righteous generation, out of goodness, out of love for Hashem. Right? So then it will happen, not easy or hard, but then the text is then there'll be more miracles. It'll be more like the delivery of Hezekiah, where 185,000 Assyrian soldiers were killed overnight. It was a Pesach night.
A beeper
Converse,
operation.
what's that?
A beeper
A beeper
operation.
operation. This is really a marvel of event. That's very cute, beeper operation. That was quite a beeper. 185,000 soldiers in the ancient world is unbelievable. So therefore, it happens in a miraculous fashion. Conversely, if it's a Dor Chayev, heaven forbid, which means if it's a generation that is guilty, however, God has to press so many buttons and create so much stimulation that they're forced into repenting rather than doing it voluntarily. So therefore, it will lack that miraculous feature to it, and it'll happen in a more Nordvin, therefore in a more painful way. So that's the difference between the two. Is the generation a righteous generation, or is the generation wicked? We're living in a remarkable generation, really, a unique generation now, in a generation that's fusing together faith in God with the land that Hashem gave us and a love for Hashem. So I'm very, very optimistic.
Is there any last thing that you want to tell us that I didn't ask you?
The Talmud asks the question that what will the children of Israel be studying when the Messiah comes? Now, as it may surprise you, when the Messiah comes, please God, very, very, very soon, will we be studying books like Jeremiah and Ezra and Isaiah? And the answer is not really, because those books are talking about how to prepare for the coming of the Messiah. If you stop and think about it, right? And there'll be no rebellion in the world. And so why would I need that opening chapter of Isaiah? So as it turns out, we're told by our sages that when Mashiach comes, not that these books are not holy, they always were holy, but they just won't be germane. And really, what the children of Israel will be studying after Mashiach comes, what we'll be studying is the five books of Moses. After all, you have to know all the commandments and the book of Esther. This is very important. The book of Esther, a book where God's name does not appear openly. The book of it, that's what we're in right now, which means we're watching a series of events that are unfolding. And if you look at the events in Esther, one can chalk it up to serendipity. Good luck. It was just a whole series of events. Esther happened to be in the right place at the right time. I am sure she was beautiful. She must have been a knockout. She was gorgeous, I'm sure. Ahasuerus, turns out he killed his wife. He's not the first king to kill his wife, and he wouldn't be the last king to kill his wife. That was ubiquitous in the ancient world. It wasn't that long ago that kings was running around killing their wives. And it happens to be Mordecai was a polymath. He spoke many, many languages, which was necessary to be a member of the Great Assembly. So he overheard a plot to, just yesterday, somebody was tried to kill Donald Trump. So assassination plots, and the guy wrote a whole manifesto. So this is like, if you look at the book of Esther, any one of those events are common. And you had someone who said, I'm going to destroy all the Jews, and which is now all over the internet, which is a mind-blowing. I mean, even those of you who were aware of anti-Semitism 10 years ago, of course you were, but we all are very aware that the anti-Semitism has moved into the Overton window has been shattered and is now in the main for reasons that are beyond this conversation. So the key is that one could look at the story of Esther and say, Jews got lucky. At every stage, it was a perfect storm, just like October 7th was a perfect storm of everything went wrong. But the what came after was a perfect storm where the nation was delivered, and we live by our blood, and that's part of our history. And therefore, that's what's happening now. Children of the Most High, my dear sisters who are listening to this, when you see the miracles like what happened on April 13th, 2024. None of us will forget that night when Iran, the first time it ever attacked Israel directly, launched 130 ballistic missiles, launched, I think, what was it, 70 drones and maybe 30 cruise missiles, so like 300. Do you understand that my studio is a Maimad, which means a bomb shelter? Okay, it just happens to be it's a room in my home. But do you understand that a ballistic missile, if it would hit a bomb shelter, would
Directly.
obliterate it? The bomb shelter is not designed. Now, there are shelters that the government has to protect the government because they have to be able to conduct the war. Every country has it, that they can withstand a direct hit of a ballistic missile. So there are such things. But that's not what a miklat, which means a general bomb shelter for a community, is. Some are more serious, but they're really designed for shrapnel or for smaller rockets and so on. They cannot. And here you had, so here one could say, and I admit now on air with you that unbelievable moment in history, I did go back into my shelter, which was just a room, but I went out to watch what was happening. The skies, I'm sure you snuck a peek, and you could just see the skies just full. It was like I mean, it's like a fireworks display where you're not sure which thing is moving is on our side and which is on the other side. So a person can say, look, the Jews got lucky and we have iron domes and iron shromes and ling shots and schmink shots and David's dome and shmomes and so on. Well, you know, there's all the hand of God, and the hand of God is upon this land. And in that attack of 300, they would have obliterated the country. Yeah, not a single person was killed in that attack. There was one girl, she wasn't Jewish, she's a Bedouin girl who was injured by a shrapnel. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if Cuba would launch one ballistic missile at Florida, which is only 90 miles away? You know what the United States would do with Cuba? It would turn into glass. Here, and do you know if it would hit Fort Lauderdale? Honey, God forbid, what would happen? So the answer is the key point that we're looking at now is, of course, there's hishtadlus, which means that we have to do what we need to do. God told King Solomon in First Kings that I'm going to protect you, you'll have years of peace, you can build a temple. But that doesn't stop King Solomon from having an army and doing all kinds of things to defend the land. Why didn't he just sit back? So we have to do what we need to do, but we have to. The key test of our time is to understand that all the things that we're witnessing is like the book of Esther, is God is working behind the idea. God is working behind all the players that are around us, our enemies and our friends and us. And we have to say, this is Hashem. We have to, like on Purim, Kimu v'kibla ha'Yehudim. It wasn't like a mountain on fire like Mount Sinai, where it was obvious. But really, God is behind everything we're observing now. And by such a dedication and awareness, this will bring the true Mashiach, where all the nations speak Besafa Bruda, as the prophet Zephaniah, who said here in this city of Jerusalem, that all the nations will speak in a pure speech, chapter 3, verse 9. Tamar, Matt, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rabbi Tovia Singer. Great to be with you again. God bless you and thank you. It was fun and it was wonderful. Hey everyone, to make sure you can get access to all of our interviews, make sure to hit the subscribe button on both our YouTube and Rumble channels. Your click makes us all stronger. Thanks.